David Malpass is the president of the World Bank. He's in Washington. Hi, Mr. Malpass. Good to meet you and good to have you on our program.
Hi, Vashi. Very good to be on. Thanks.
President Zelensky today, Mr. Malpass, is saying a modern version of a Marshall Plan will be necessary to rebuild Ukraine. Is he right?
It's going to take a lot of money, and whether you call it the Marshall Plan or a reconstruction plan, it's clearly that's going to be an important part of the way Europe develops, and especially Eastern Europe develops into the future. We're working on both the short-term aspects of that, meaning the funding that's needed right now in Ukraine for hospital workers and other service workers, but then also more the medium term with regard to their grain output, and then longer term, how do you rebuild? So these are going to be major efforts for the world, really.
And how do you, as you laid that out there, I was thinking, how do you balance all of that? Because certainly the need right now, the immediate need is immense. And not only the World Bank, but obviously countries on themselves. I was listening to the donor conference today where President Zelensky made those remarks, are offering a lot of money for that. Then that when you look to the medium and the long term, are there any concerns from your vantage point about not necessarily running out of money, but the ability of countries to fund the longer term rebuild when the need right now is so great and taking so many resources?
The goal is to use money effectively, and right now there are clear monthly needs. It's a burn rate, a cash flow rate for supporting the services of the government that's at war. So there are the pay for government workers, the pensions for elderly are continuing, and that's a finite number, and it's being met in the short run. And then we're trying to build enough confidence that that's going to go on for many months. It looks as if the war is lingering. I mean, it's horrific, it's wrong, and yet we have to make some plans for it continuing. And then as you move to the medium term, the agricultural production of Ukraine is substantial, and it needs to be gotten to market. So that can include railroads going toward Poland and into Western Europe. That includes efforts to reopen some ports on the Black Sea. All of these are important for the world, because Ukraine is having an impact on food supplies globally, and that's a third set of challenges that I think we have to face.
The result of the issues you just laid out is a huge spike in prices for food and for commodities. How long do you anticipate that spike will last?
I'm afraid longer than it should. Normally markets react fast, but as we see with food, the fertilizer problem is a intermediate one. Fertilizer, a big chunk of its component is natural gas, and that's in short supply because of the move away from Russian natural gas. That affects fertilizer markets, which then affect the planting season. So I'm afraid there'll be elevated prices and inflation rates into the future. We saw today India is facing a drought and lower crop yields than had been hoped for. That's putting a negative effect on. So all of these are problems that I think we should try to address with greater supply. All parts of the world that can produce more in terms of fertilizer, in terms of energy resources, and in terms of food should be endeavoring to do that right now. I know in Canada there is a move to put more acreage under production, and Canada is also a big producer of fertilizer, and so those can really help the rest of the world.
When you say those prices are here for a longer time than people would like to see them, are you talking years?
It really depends on supply response. The farmers are really good at producing crops. If they can get fertilizer and they can get financing and equipment, they can produce a lot. So I'm actually optimistic that there'll be a huge supply response as people see that the higher price is going to, be available to them for a while. That will change the way markets operate, and it's doing that right now.
The World Bank has revised its outlook where global economic growth is concerned, revised it down, understandably, given what's going on in Ukraine. That combined with what we were just talking about, some level of sustained higher prices. How worried are you about the potential for a global recession in the next few years and more widely, stagflation?
There is that risk. We've already seen the U.S. with 1 quarter of negative growth in the first quarter. That may not repeat in the second, but Europe data is out and it has weakened. And the supply chain problems are still one of the challenges because of China's lockdown in Shanghai, a very, very restrictive lockdown. That's reduced the output from their ports, which then affects products around the world. So these are very concerning trends for GDP growth, and I expect it to be substantially weaker here in 2022 than had been expected earlier. We've lowered our forecast as a result.
Do you think there is a high likelihood of a global recession in the next 18 to 24 months?
I don't want to go to that point because circumstances change, but certainly the odds of a recession have gone up substantially, both because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's a huge negative, but then also that coming against the backdrop of the high inflation rate and the central bank choice to focus on rate hikes. I've advocated the central banks use more of their tools. They have regulatory tools that can encourage supply, and they also have the ability to reduce the duration of their asset holdings. That would help with the creation of supply and small business lending, and these could help smooth the deceleration, the slowdown that we're in right now.
Okay, Mr. Malpass, I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.